Uh-huh. We're live now. Hello, everyone. This is Meurmishvili, and I am honored to co-host this another podcast or another YouTube
Episode of
video.
our joint podcast.
Yes, our joint podcast with Georgi Katcharava, who's one of the most brilliant and knowledgeable minds in Georgia that I know. So thank you very much, Georgi.
Thank you
Um,
for compliments.
Um, so we have a good announcement to those of you who are watching or who may watch this later. Over time, we're thinking about introducing different voices to our viewers here on this channel. From Georgia, possibly from the region, but we're thinking about introducing some of the diaspora voices to you and talk to you about who these people are. Some of them are really brilliant and super successful in what they are doing. Very proud Georgian Americans in some cases, business owners, political leaders, just community leaders. So stay tuned for that. We're very proud to make this announcement today. And we will also be planning on bringing some different political voices from you from Georgia. So the English speaking audience can get to know them, understand where they're coming from, and most importantly, we'll be bringing some younger voices to you as well to actually understand who this generation is, what they're thinking about, how they are thinking about their future, about what's happening in the world, and about the future of Georgia, of course. So, with that, that was the big announcement we wanted to make today, and now. I will just announce a couple topics that we'll be talking about with Georgi today. One would be the first one will be something very important for the region and in a way really unprecedented for um, that part, for our part of the region, minus Georgia, I should say. Armenia and US signed a strategic partnership charter this week. And this is very important from multiple of different perspectives. And Georgi and I will talk about, mostly Georgi will talk about what it means for the region. We'll also present some views and reactions from the Russian and Azerbaijan side on this U.S. Armenia relations, as well as Armenia's strive to reorient its foreign policy away from Russia, more towards the West. So stay tuned for that as well. And if we have time, we'll touch upon some topics related to Ukraine. So with that, Georgi, would you like to add anything before we dive into the
Well,
conversation?
I also want to greet our audience and ask them to hit the like and subscribe and stay with us because we are talking about interesting stuff here. Just to continue, as you said, the most important, in our opinion, event that happened related to the South Caucasus region globally was the signature of Armenia-US Strategic Partnership Charter yesterday between the Secretary of State Blinken and Ararat Mirzoyan, the Foreign Minister of Armenia. The charter is very similar to what we already know as a Georgia-US charter, which is suspended as of several months ago, unfortunately, and is called to strengthen U.S. Armenia relations in a number of fields. The main, I would not go through all the topics and points over there, but what I want to highlight is that the most important thing for Armenia and for the U.S. in this matter is that the declarative part of the charter actually states that this charter is called to, to enhance peaceful, secure, and independent South Caucasus. So it states from the very beginning that this document, and this kind of relationship has to, to contribute to the peace, stability, and independence of the South Caucasus, which is very important for all the region and not only to Armenia.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
probably all the points that are, mentioned in these documents are called to strengthen uh, Armenia's ability to contribute towards peace, stability, and independence of the South Caucasus in general.
Mhm.
Then, what is most important also from the political, or let's say geopolitical point of view, and that relates to also to the neighboring countries, is the proposition that this charter will provide, um, foundation for the United States to provide assistance in terms of the um, building the capacity of border guards and the customs
Mhm.
in Armenia. And why it is important, because as we know that the borders of Armenia are basically controlled by the Russian border troops, and this slow process of substitution them with Armenian contingent has started last year from the airport in Yerevan and some checkpoints going to on the road going to Iran, etc., etc. So if United States will be helping Armenia to basically take over the responsibility for its own borders and will build the capacity for that in this country, that will be crucially important for the country and for the region, because first time after the gaining of independence, Armenia will be able and will be in charge of controlling its own borders.
Yeah.
And this is very important. And that means that some portion of Russian military contingents, meaning the border troops, will be out of the country or out of the region, which is also very important in terms of building not only the capacity but also the trust among the regional countries. The second one, which is also very important in my opinion, is this charter is laying also foundation for opening the doors for the discussions already official, which were already announced, related to the cooperation between the two countries in the energy sector, meaning creation or uh, building a new nuclear power plant, which has to come next to the already existing Metsamur nuclear power plant, which is actually right now is in the hands and under the management of the Russian Energoatom or Rosatom, uh, and basically that also means that the cutting edge technologies from the United States will come to Armenia and modernize the electricity generation system in the country, plus the very old and I would say dangerous power plant that is basically similar to Chernobyl, and we all remember what happened to Chernobyl in 1986,
Mm.
will be closed down for good.
Mhm.
And that also means actually basically enforcing independence, energy independence of Armenia from the Russia,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah,
also
so it sounds like there are a few sort of directions in which the U.S.
exactly
is willing to help Armenia strengthen its own, not only border security and integrity, but also energy independence, which is a huge deal, especially in that region. And to those viewers who may not, let me just very briefly interject to give more context to it. Uh, for the viewers who may not be familiar with the geography or how Armenia is limited in some ways, is that Armenia is a landlocked country, and it has relations. It has on the Armenia's neighbors are Georgia in the north, Azerbaijan in the east. Very small part with Iran, which is
in the
it?
south.
It's in the
In
south.
the south, yeah.
uh, Very small portion of it, and a very large portion of Armenia's border is with Turkey. And Turkey and Armenia have not had diplomatic relations or any sort of border crossing relations for for since
forever.
independence, forever, for a very long time. So everything that the Georgi talked about the strategic partnership, considering this fact that Armenia, a small country, um, is basically pressured from most sides on its borders, except for Georgia, because with Georgia, Georgia is basically the lifeline for Armenia's being it, um, at least on the land travel and land communications. And with Georgia, it has no major disputes on the border. It's very important to keep this context in mind when we talk about the strategic partnership and how big of a deal this is for Armenia in particular. Another sort of a footnote I would like to add to what Georgi said is that um, Armenia has been a strategic partner or partner with Russia for since its independence in 1991. There is a major Russian military base in Armenia, Gyumri, and that's also not a small sort of change when you're hosting a different country's military base, and that's both economically probably beneficial for Armenia, but geopolitically it's been a hindrance of a sort for Armenia to pivot more towards the West. But for this past, especially since the war, and Georgi, correct me if I'm not accurate here, but since Russia's invasion or reinvasion of Ukraine in 2022, Armenia started making more visible and more courageous steps to pivot itself more uh, towards the West, and maybe even possibly post Nagorno Karabakh final
Yes.
conflict, which restored Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. Therefore, Armenia lost control over Nagorno Karabakh, which it had controlled since the early 90s. So those are the two things that I wanted to bring to the viewers' attention to
Yeah.
provide some context as to why this strategic partnership with America is so important.
Yes, that's absolutely correct because the viewers have to understand the background of the issue related or issues related to Armenia. I just wanted to add that, Armenia started to drift very slowly, very carefully towards the west right after the Second Karabakh War, 44 day war in 2020, which it lost, and consecutively lost basically control over Karabakh in finally in September 2023. Uh, this also comes at a time where in December the Prime Minister Pashinyan's government announced officially that the European integration will be now the official policy of Armenia. Now, why it is also important, and as you mentioned, previous relations with Russia, they didn't fade away anywhere.
Yeah.
They still exist. The troops are stationed in Armenia, and there is a very strong bilateral agreements related to the military bases and military alliances with Russia and with the CSTO, the Collective Defense Treaty that connects Russia and Armenia and some other post-Soviet states. Plus, Armenia is a member of the Eurasian Economic Union and the Customs Union, which actually incorporates Armenia into the Russian-led sphere of influence.
Yeah. Both economic
Armenia,
and military. Yeah.
absolutely, it's economic, military, and politically, it's also a member of the CIS.
Yes.
Still, so in under these conditions, how Armenia will be able to navigate these waters in order to sail towards the west. And it seems that Armenia is not only geographically a landlocked country, but it's also politically, militarily, and economically locked into this sphere of influence. So Armenia is in a very difficult situation. And by the way, yesterday there was a very long press conference of Mr. Lavrov, where he mentioned I mean, he was asked about these issues. I mean, this Western pivot, as you said, of Armenia and willingness of Armenia to be closer to the Western allies. And Lavrov's answer was that every country has its own choice,
Of
etc.
course.
But there are also obligations. So it's like and this was like you could read it in triple type of way, not double way, but it's open question for me and for many observers and for many who is actually specialized in this region. It will be very difficult
Yeah,
for me.
let me ask you a sort of a provocative question.
Please.
We have not talked about this before, but um, it seems to me that, well, first of all, Armenia needs to start somewhere. You cannot just all of a sudden stop everything that you just talked about: military, political, economic ties, and very close ties with Russia, and all of a sudden, next day, overnight, become a partner and fully integrated.
Although, yeah, just sorry for interruption, but it kind of suspended or frozen its relationship with the CSTO,
Yes,
being unsatisfied with the reactions towards, as they call it, aggressive steps from the side of the Azerbaijan.
yes, yes.
But
So that was, small steps. You cannot. It should be a process. You cannot just overnight again pivot, make such a major dramatic change to how your state functions. So my that provocative question or a thought is that it seems like Armenia is looking at what's happening in the region, looking at what's happening in the war in Ukraine. Next president of the United States will most likely have a different approach to foreign policy than the Biden administration had. So, keeping everything in mind, maybe Armenia is getting ready for Russia's defeat in this war in Ukraine, and therefore is aligning its policies and its future with the West, assuming that what Russia is going to be weakened after this war, after President Trump comes to the White House.
uh,
Whereas I would say Georgian authorities are making a different sort of bet. And they are thinking that, well, once the war is over and Russia comes out as somewhat victorious from this conflict, they want to uh, make sure that they are on the right side of Russia. So, what do you think about that? It just
it
is
is
it really
possible.
a factor? Could it be?
It is possible, but I think what is really going on now, I mean, not excluding what you just said, and it's not a provocation, it's just, I think it's a very good analysis of the situation as one option,
Mhm.
right? But another option, also maybe provocative, is that maybe Pashinyan's government has no other choice. First, because they're not welcomed in this Russian led conglomerate already. They feel themselves uncomfortable over there, and they basically lost the trust. So all these pro-Russian sentiments that are still actually very strong in Armenia were based on the trust towards Russia, that Russia is a historic protector of Armenia and Armenians wherever they are, especially in from the times of the Ottoman Empire, and therefore they will not betray us. But
Mhm.
when 2020 happened, and basically they faced a very severe and brutal, I think, defeat by force from Azerbaijan, they understood that they cannot count on Russia.
It's not a reliable partner. Yeah.
Yeah, it is not a reliable partner. So it's not that they are thinking. I think they're playing it very carefully, because I would not say that they are pro-Ukrainian, although Pashinyan made certain steps to show the sympathy towards Ukraine. But I don't think that it was enough to now say that they are counting on a victory of Ukraine or defeat of Russia. Although I think you are right in a way that I see very difficult personal relationship between Pashinyan and Putin. So there is no sympathy between these two, and therefore this kind of personal animosity probably plays a major role in the current state of affairs.
Mhm.
I would say
Which is very often the case.
very often,
Yeah.
yes. We know that all the politics are personal first,
Yeah. Yeah.
then something else.
Yeah. Well, I cannot help thinking that before we get into more of the reactions from the Kremlin, there's another strategic partnership that came up today between Iran and Russia. And on the 17th, Iranian new president of Iran, I guess he's not all that new anymore. He's been there since July, right? Masoud
Pezeshkian, yeah.
Pezeshkian. Um, he will travel to Moscow for 3 days, which is also noteworthy because it's going to be a long visit, meaning that he will have many meetings, many topics to discuss. And supposedly, Iran and Russia will sign a strategic partnership, some sort of deal. What do you know about that deal? What do you think that's all about, and what can we share with our viewers?
I don't really know the content of this document.
Mhm.
Um, whatever information we can search for is, and then open sources is basically that this document consists of 47 points,
Mm,
which is quite long
yeah.
for an agreement. And what we also know that this document was planned to be signed in October during BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia.
Mhm.
But that signature was postponed, and in my opinion, that was postponed because they wanted to wait until the clarification who is the next president of the United States,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that was a crucially important piece in the puzzle, final piece in the puzzle that will basically draw the picture. But I think what is important is that this is, strategic partnership in this case is not fully or solely defense related, but it
Mm,
is security related for sure.
yeah.
So I think this agreement will continue relationship of Russia and and Iran in terms of the security cooperation and defense cooperation.
Mhm.
Um,
Now it will be on the paper as a strategic partnership thing.
Yeah, it will be signed, sealed, and will be official. So, meaning that Iran will supply Russia with some munition, drones, and some other military equipment and stuff. Um, and Russia will be basically continuing, probably upgrading the air defense systems
Hmm.
as well as the air force.
Right.
This
Iranians
is
have been, I remember that Iranians have been wanting the Russian, what, Su-35 for a long time. And
Well,
it's,
actually, they made a deal a year and a half ago. I don't know whether these Sukhoi jets were already delivered or not, but they made a deal about purchasing some bunch of them.
yeah.
Of course, this is for Iranian Air Force. It's an upgrade because they were flying U.S. made airplanes or warplanes that were made basically in 70s, back in 70s. So
Wow.
they are already outdated physically and technologically as well.
Yeah.
But this is important because if we will retrospect with whom Russia had this kind of an agreement last time, last year, this kind of agreement was signed with the North Korea. And
Right.
after signature of this, I'm not proving anything. I'm just speculating that that was the case.
Yeah.
With the North Korea, after signature of this kind of document, we witnessed, involvement of North Korean military on the Ukrainian front, with equipment, with soldiers and officers, etc., and big numbers. I mean, big numbers. We are talking about 10 or a bit more thousand people, but that's something significant, right? What does this kind of an agreement with Iran means? I really don't know. But they have I think wider cooperation field, I mean planned. Probably this is the South Caucasus. I'm not I'm not excluding cooperation related to the north-south transportation corridors running from Russia down to the through the Caspian and through Azerbaijan to Iran and further to India and global south, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, and don't forget about the Middle East. Middle East is a very important region for both countries where they were recently both defeated. And for both of these countries, this region,
That's very good.
yeah, this region is something that they will probably try to restore their influence. So that's what I would like to state, that observers and others who are interested should be watching
Hmm.
next
Yeah.
step, because everybody now is concentrated on rebuilding Syria, or Turkish influence, United States influence, Israeli involvement in this. And I would like to congratulate all of the
Yes.
involved, because as far as I understand, the deal was tracked that
Yes.
the
Just
Hamas will release a certain number of prisoners, and I do hope that they will be safe and
and there
healthy
was some news
when they.
report just before we started that ceasefire deal has been reached between the two sides.
Yes, that's what
That's
I'm referring to.
really welcome
Yeah.
to especially.
So important thing is that uh, how these two powers having this let's say agreement in place will be approaching the Middle Eastern issues that are actually in their agenda, or what will be their corrected agenda in terms of the Middle East. So
Mhm.
these are the questions that I actually have related um, to the Iran-Russia agreement.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Um,
and that is that has overarching, importance for the wider region,
yeah. Let me
South Caucasus,
just
Central Asia, and Middle East.
yeah. Yeah, Central Asia is this big mystery of a region that, especially for the Western viewers and observers, that's very important, very rich in
Very
resources,
rich, very,
very
very historic,
complex.
and very, very strategically located. And if
Absolutely.
we will throw back our attention to Mr. Mackinder, and this is the heartland that he was
Yeah,
talking in his writings,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. To again footnote something that you said. Um, I wonder to what extent this is just going to stay as an agreement and never really be implemented, because we've seen some other agreements that Russia has made with other countries that at least have not come to fruition. It was like big. Remember a few years ago, there was a gas pipeline deal, the mother of all pipelines, that was supposed to take gas from Russia to China. And there was a multi-billion-dollar project, never came to fruition. I wonder if this is going to be something similar to that. And the reason why I'm saying that is that both Iran and Russia, and of course North Korea, but in this case, Iran and Russia are heavily sanctioned by the West. Iran, particularly so. Iranian economy is doing basically. It's not developing as much technologically. I think they're having a hard time, and as you said, also it's not just the overall economy, but it's also impacting their military development, because most of the resources that they have are being diverted to the nuclear program. As opposed to maybe working in other directions. And Russia is also heavily sanctioned. Technologically, it seems to have some issues, especially with Air Force, even with in some cases, civilian air fleet. And just what 2 days ago, earlier last week, at the end of last week, the Biden administration imposed the worst possible sanctions on the Russian energy sector, which is going to also cripple the economy, Russian economy. So all this cooperation between the two countries, of course, is something to pay attention to and to make a note of. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that the economies of both are not doing as great. And Russian economy, as most Western experts are saying, is going through some incredibly difficult times. But the fact that it's just a war economy, some of the things are hidden from public or from the observers. But the central bank is having some issues. The inflation is going bad. The interest rates may go up to 25%. That's the prediction. So we'll see really where this agreement goes. But I'm not definitely not to diminish the importance and the timing when this is happening. That we should keep in mind.
Yeah. First of all, we have to understand that both countries, I think, are already in the regime of the war economy.
Hmm.
With the, and these two countries are rich with resources, and this resource base gives them an opportunity to prolong their crisis. I mean, to prolong reaching the bottom of this crisis.
Yes.
This is one. The second is that when it comes to Russia, I would say that, I mean, we have an experience living in the in the former Soviet Union. I mean, during the Soviet Union times, and I think Russia has seen much severe, socially desperate times. So still they can survive. Um, Sort of. I mean, I'm talking about the population right now, not the government or not the economy. What is important is that for Iran, having resources, they didn't have access um, to the military technologies that Russia has at the moment. And that's how Russia can assist Iran. And Iran, being strategically located um, in the Middle East and having close borders with Russia through the Caspian Sea, can play the very negative role. So they can spoil big regions in the world that are actually very important for the global economy, right? So still the Hormuz and the Persian Gulf and all the oil that comes from there, and the proxies like Houthis, for example, that can still fire some missiles not only to Israel but also disrupt the maritime routes, trade routes through the Red Sea and Canal. I mean
Yeah.
the Suez.
Something tells me that that's also going to change with President Trump coming to the White House.
Well, hopefully that's where I lead. And what I'm saying right now is that basically this is a situation that can be created by this, let's say, excess of evil to revive the old term of Reagan administration.
Right.
Uh, but now we have also the West with determination, especially towards the Middle East, as we already know, because President Trump already stated several times, that he is willing to take a very decisive steps to calm down the region,
Hmm.
right? Sort of calm down. So what I want to say is that we have to sit and watch how this will play. This game will play, and now also we have to understand the another player that is best friend with Russia and best friend with Iran as well. It's China,
Yeah.
and how that country will play its own card in this game, we don't know yet. So we are living in a very interesting times, as we
The
used to
Chinese would say,
say.
right?
Yeah. And now, like, lying all these cards on the table right now. We have to sit and watch.
Yes, we
But basically, we just mentioned all the important bits and pieces of this global puzzle that might draw our attention and the picture in general for a couple of years to come. I
absolutely.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Georgi, I know that you are actively watching and monitoring most things that come out from the Kremlin, and you consume this information in multiple of different languages as well. So, what since we promised to our viewers to talk about some of the reactions from Azerbaijan as well as Russia. What is it that if you can summarize? I know that you listened to Lavrov's press conference, which you just mentioned. You
Yeah.
also watched a couple of interviews with President Aliyev. Any points you want to share with us? What do you think? How would you characterize the reaction to Armenia, sort of this attempt to pivot?
Um, I mean, talking about the Lavrov's press conference, I would say that the whole time it was in every single answer to any questions that were asked, and I think that those questions were very carefully selected. By the way, it was
Oh, of course,
staged.
that's
It
always
was staged press conference as usual. I think it was utterly anti-Western
mm,
and very much anti-American.
yeah.
It reminded me the worst
Very
times of the Cold War, to be very honest. And when he was talking about I'm just generalizing right now. I'm not ready to quote him, but I'm generalizing basically. But the spirit was like, okay, we have another guy in the White House coming in. We know him, and whatever he will be, offering us, we will discuss it. But our position is this, and that,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
they are basically, drawing the limits of their area where they want to play. And I understand that they will start these negotiations about Ukraine uh, from the very, very high bar. I mean, set it bar. He also, by the way, mentioned Yalta Potsdam type of what is it, world order that was set by winners in the Second World War, United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union. And he said that that agreement was violated by the United States, and all the blame.
All the
Uh,
agreements. If how does that saying go? If only I had a penny for every agreement that Russia has ever broken. It's incredible that
you'll be the wealthiest person in the world, I think.
right, right.
Yeah.
To I'm not changing the topic here, but one of the most close to my heart agreements that Russia has never implemented, and to this day, after what since 2008, is violating it, is the ceasefire agreement that Russia signed. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's very interesting that every time the Russian officials, especially the foreign minister, talk about some sort of international agreements that the Russia was part of, and somebody else is always in violation. It's never Russia, even though we can list so many of them, important global security related agreements that Russia has been violating.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was the atmosphere and environment in the press conference where it was absolutely, utterly anti-Western, anti-American. All this, all types of statements that we've heard many, many times. Well, when it comes to the former Soviet Union area and let's say Armenia, as I said, he mentioned that Armenia has this and that right as an independent state, but there are also some obligations. And in this context, he also mentioned very importantly Georgia, and as you already once mentioned, I think we should talk about it more, maybe in a separate setting or in the separate program, the 3+3 format. And
Mhm.
for viewers, I think it is a format that was actually uh, created a couple of years ago. Three South Caucasian countries, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, plus three regional powers, meaning Turkey, Iran, and Russia, should talk about the South Caucasian issues. And Georgia refused to participate in this format, first of all, because of Russia, since it occupies 20% of our territories, and we will not sit in by the same desk with this kind of country. And the second is that it is widely acknowledged that this format is called to basically keep the West out of this region.
Yeah,
And for Georgia, I think, and for at that time and even today, the West is the main partner in everything: economic, politics, and geopolitics, even more.
and
So,
security. Yeah,
sorry. Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Therefore, this and what Lavrov has been saying is that for Georgia, this seat is empty, but it is waiting for Georgia. So, I mean, basically, it was another invitation to this format, and I would say that this is a dangerous wording that I always pay attention, because taking into account what is going on right now in our country and this kind of statements coming from Moscow, they always have to be viewed very, very carefully and very carefully analyzed. So that's
absolutely.
what I actually paying
Yeah.
attention to.
I think I sort of second you in that proposal that 3+3 would be something important to talk about, and definitely if our viewers have questions or if they are interested in specific particular topics, they can write to us and we'll make sure to get the answers for them. And to whoever's watching, if you have any questions, please send them along. If not, we're wrapping up the conversation here with.
No,
Uh,
I want to add something here, if I may. Um, and in my opinion, before we start to talk, or Russia or anyone will start to talk about 3+3 and connecting it to your, sad sentiments about 2008 agreement that they are violating, it's better Russia to implement that agreement or ceasefire agreement uh, first, and then we might think about something else.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, well, we'll see. We'll see about that. How far it goes. If it really has potential, given the fact that yeah, Georgian public is not really for it.
No.
Some of the Georgian propaganda, the Russian style propaganda, is pushing for the idea, saying that I even heard a quote. This is not a specific quote, but I'm paraphrasing. There was a guest that was saying, wouldn't it be wonderful for Georgia to sort of take advantage of this diplomatic initiative by Iran and run with it? And
Yes.
this is the sort of this is the nature of the narratives are being pushed out now. But I don't think this arrangement really has any sort of future, at least in the immediate future. But we should see. This is definitely very
Yeah,
dangerous. Very
I fully agree with you. Yeah, the danger is there for sure, but I don't see it because for anyone in the power right now, like the government, not, there is no one who can sell this to the public.
public.
Public,
Yes.
it is impossible.
Yeah.
Public will not consume this, and we have people in the streets already for 45 days now, and today was a nationwide strike, by the way. So it will be
Unprecedented.
non yes, and there will be no people sitting in their chairs at home if that will be announced.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, it definitely would be one crisis after another. So,
Yes,
but something to definitely pay attention to.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, Georgi, do you want to add anything to what we said thus far?
I think I talked too much today,
Well, that's good.
so I would give you an opportunity to wrap it up. I don't know. Maybe you have something, another provocative issue to
Maybe
to
next
raise.
time.
Maybe
We
next time.
are already live for 45 minutes, and I think we should give our viewers some break and the
Yes.
opportunity to digest what we just talked about. Thank you very much for co-hosting this. Thank you, Tonika, who's watching from behind the scenes right now, as well as Gote. Um, Pleasure seeing you. Based in DC, Washington, DC. Georgi is in Tbilisi, Georgia. And Tonika is, and Dario is based in Texas. So this is truly a sort of international or uh, intercontinental gathering, I should say.
Exactly.
Um, so thanks very much for watching. We'll be back next week,
Thank you
and
very much.
as we talked about it, we'll try to bring the diversity of voices to you moving forward, and we'll talk more about Georgia as well once we see. Let's see what happens in the coming weeks. Thanks very much.
Thank you, yeah, for this wonderful conversation, and I would like to thank our audience to be with us and stay with us always.